From Rixie, this is the Daily Rec. I'm Steve Skeels, host of Rixie's game news podcast, Debuff. My comic recommendation for today is a manga called Berserk by Kentaro Miura. I don't really know the first time that I heard about Berserk, but about 6 years ago, it finally caught my friend Dylan and I's attention, and we decided to watch the 97 anime adaptation. What I didn't realize is that it only adapted the first arc, and I was really mad because it left on a major cliffhanger. So once I cooled off, I decided I had to read the source. I'll start with the disclaimer that story's still unfinished, and it's infamous for its constant hiatus, but I think it's worth reading even if it's never completed. It's been in the works for about 40 years or so, and it's basically an epic about a man named Guts who is just too angry to die. The man took on 100 soldiers alone and lived, and he's on a larger-than-life quest for retribution. I love him. Without getting into spoilers too much, the first real arc is about Guts joining up with a group of mercs called the Band of the Hawks, led by the charismatic Griffith. They work their way up the political chain, following Griffith's every command because he's promised to lead them to greatness, and they trust him. However, it's awesome because Miura cleverly put a mini-arc up front that is a flash-forward in time. This shows Guts with, he's in a worse-off state, that's all we'll say. And he's fighting skeletons and demons, including one called Griffith that he's clearly got a grudge with. Works really well because this shows that Guts has been through some shit, and it introduces the craziness that will come later, including the demons and magic that is not present in the chronological beginning of Guts' story. So you get pulled in, and there's no real explanation, so you want to read it and figure out how he ends up there. But I think what I really like about Berserk is that there's a lot of components to it that are all very present throughout. Yeah, there's some sweet fights and the obvious good versus evil, but there's political corruption, romance, trauma, revenge, and, of course, my favorite, fantastic characters. I think everyone has their own motivations that you can learn about in it, and, of course, every main character experiences growth. Even ones I started out hating, I kind of ended up sympathizing with and really came to enjoy. And, of course, as the protagonist, Guts goes through many arcs himself, and he perseveres against literal fate itself. Well, I think that's all I want to say about it before I give away too much, but I'd recommend Berserk to anyone who likes dark fantasy, as well as anyone who just likes a good story about overcoming trauma and seemingly impossible odds. You can watch the 1997 anime or the movies that adapted it, but I do not recommend the 2016 or 27 continuations of it. They're notoriously hated. But I mostly recommend reading the manga, and Berserk's English translation is published by Dark Horse, and there will be a link to the listings in the show notes. They've got both physical and digital versions available. This has been your Daily Rec. We'll see you tomorrow.